was meant to be a comic book movie, and Hudson Hawk was a comic book action film, and people were going in thinking they were getting another serious Bruce Willis action film. And so when you go into it like that and you come out going, what the hell did I just watch? Hello, Glenn.
Well, yeah, instead of the Jason Statham kind.
Yeah. How you doing, Glenn? Oh, you're sounding like a mouse again.
Uh-oh. He sounds like that oil can from The Wizard of Oz. Oil me.
And boom.
Well, no, we've had that happen before where he's got to drop out and back in.
Oh, yeah.
Then he doesn't sound quite like a mouse.
When he doesn't sound like Beth. Hi, Beth.
Hello.
There we are.
Hey, look at you, sound like Beth again.
We can't have a sigh and high-pitched chipmunk voice.
But if anybody could do it, would be Beth.
He would. It'd still have a whole lot of meaning too. So, David, how do you spell your? How do you pronounce your last name?
Streggy.
Streggy. Okay. David, this is Glenn. Glenn, this is David. He occasionally listens to the show. He's a movie reviewer out of Milwaukee, and we've invited him on for the bad episodes.
Hello, Glenn. Hello. Nice to finally hear a voice.
see a voice to a name to a voice. Alrighty, so we'll get
As it were.
As it were, yes. So we'll fire it up here for Batman Returns. Here we go, folks.
Okay, where do we go?
And welcome to the spoiler room. Yes, we are continuing Batmonth all in June, and we covered Batman 1989 last week, so it's only natural that we follow it up with Batman Returns from 1992. And tonight in the spoiler room, we have a great crew with us, as well as a fresh voice joining us talking about Batman. We have David. Hello, David. How are you today?
I'm doing okay. Yourself?
Doing well. Glad you could join us here in the spoiler room to talk about this interesting sequel. And next to David on his left is Cole Meredith back in his house. Hello, Cole.
Hey, Mark. How are you doing, man?
Good. Excited to talk about this film. And to the other side of David is the diva of the spoiler room herself, the one and only Dawn. Hello, Dawn.
Meow, gentlemen.
Yes. So glad you could join us tonight, especially because of a certain character in this movie. Definitely wanted to get your perspective, and so glad you could join us and bring that perspective with you tonight. And next to Dawn, the BFD himself, Glenn Bittner. Hello, Glenn. How are you?
I just want to say that as far as the sequel goes, this is only slightly better than my awful Walken impression.
Fantastic. And yes, folks, we are talking about Batman Returns 1992, directed by Tim Burton. And now, if you're not familiar with the story of Batman Returns, shame on you, but we get the story here of a corrupt businessman and a grotesque penguin character plot to take control of Gotham City, and only Batman can stop them while the Catwoman has her own agenda. This follow-up to the huge hit that was Batman took a little while to get out, and yeah, I want to get everybody's initial feelings after they saw Batman Returns. So, David, since you are new here, we'll get you first. Do you remember after the first time you saw Batman Returns, how did you feel about it, considering...
the first time or recently?
Let's go the first time you felt about it, and then if it changed for you recently.
Well, I believe the first time that I actually saw it was actually in Mill Road Theater when it was actually still in existence. And I remember seeing that one and Batman Forever at the same theater. And to me, the initial reaction to it early on was that it was kind of kooky. I didn't really like it as much as the first one, and now later, in the present day, I like it a little bit better than I did. But there are some things that I noticed while I was watching it this time that I probably didn't pay attention to last time.
It's interesting how things change for a film that you watch and you come back and revisit it, and some things you noticed. I watched this film just like the first one a lot, and yeah, I'm with you. There's a few things I still notice about it. So, Cole, how about you? Your initial when you saw Batman Returns, and has it changed at all?
Yeah, man, I saw it. I was probably 13 when I first saw it, or 14, and I saw it in a theater alone. I think the Saturday after it came out, or within 2 weeks, and the theater was pretty empty. I mean, it wasn't vacant, but it was only like halfway full for like a early Saturday show for such a new big movie like that. And I had a very bizarre experience because I remember really getting into it. This is about 2 years before I fell in love with The Crow, so I was sort of honing these gothic tastes, and I remember really getting into it, but not for any of the reasons I thought I would. And my distinct impression leaving the theater with the people that were there was that they were offended. So I had this like really weird experience where I liked it. I wanted to get to know more about it, watch it a couple more times, and figure out what was so strange and unique about it. But also having this weird experience where I swear to God, man, I'm sure you guys had this experience too. When I saw the 1989 version, it was the complete opposite. I mean, when the Batmobile showed up, people stood up and clapped. And I'm not talking like a couple people. I'm talking to like the whole theater. So to go from that to this really weird, intimate, morbid kind of experience with these really sinister jokes was something I was really into, and I really liked seeing as a Batman fan even. But none of my friends liked it, and I saw it a couple times in the theater, and it wasn't a good experience either time in terms of audience participation. And all these years later, I mean, my opinion still hasn't really changed. I still like it for reasons that I don't typically like superhero movies. I think it may fail in the last act a little bit. There's certain things you need to pull off a really good Batman movie, and a good action set piece in the climax is one of them. And this lacks that. I think you could have had him take on the Red Triangle Gang underground there, and got another good sort of fist fight type of ballet thing going on, Burton style. But aside from that, I just think it's really a unique film for reasons I'm sure we'll get into.
Awesome. And Dawn, how about you when you first watched it, and then had that changed at all after you rewatched it?
So I'm in the minority here. I did not see this when it was in the theater.
Oh, okay.
I saw it when it was released to video because it took a lot to get me in the theater. Right around that time, I was just working on. I was just in college, and it just took a lot to get me out of study mode at that time, just before I met Sheldon. Anyhow, so when I saw it, I didn't have the I didn't get the audience participation. Most of my friends had already seen it, and had pretty much not liked it all that well, and I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see a problem with it. I mean, it was a darker
Mm-hmm.
and more humorous at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah, I noticed that as well with this rewatch, that it was like that. And do you still have the same feelings of it today?
I have very mixed feelings about it today.
Mm-hmm.
It is still my favorite of the it is still my favorite of the sequels from before the Dark Knight.
Right.
I even I even like this one more than I like the 1989 one.
Was it the Pee Wee Herman factor? No, just kidding.
It didn't hurt.
Yeah. Awesome.
I thought it was done. I thought it was done really well. I really liked the
Mhm.
characters, and it didn't hurt that there was a really strong, not horribly pathetic female lead.
Yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer is the Catwoman, which
Mhm.
character we're definitely going to explore a little bit tonight. Things that I noticed after watching it just before this podcast, actually. So, yeah. And Glenn, how about you with your when you first saw it in the theaters, and have your feelings changed with it over the years?
My feelings have definitely changed over the years. When I saw it, I liked it. I didn't love it. I didn't like it as much as the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Revisiting it over the years, I like it less. I don't care at all for Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman, or just the way they handle Catwoman.
Mm-hmm.
Danny DeVito is fine as the Penguin, although some of the things I don't know. It just it was this mix. It was too much. I think it was too much for me. It was too much of a mix of the campy 60 Batman and a dark, gritty Batman. They were trying to do both at the same time. I don't think it, at least for me, it didn't mesh well.
Sure. And,
So you're going, we're going to be dark and we're going to be gritty, and we're going to have 6 foot tall penguins.
Yeah. Well, part of that, from my understanding, because for me, after the first one, if you didn't gather from the previous episode, folks, I loved the first one. So when I heard there was going to be a sequel, I ate up everything Batman Returns. I was like, oh, yes. I've got, and I actually have it on the YouTube channel, and they haven't taken it down yet. I've got the half-hour primetime TV show they did featuring the Bat, the Cat, and the Penguin. Because back in the day, they actually occasionally did a TV show that would promote a film. Not often, though. This was still kind of a unique experience that they had it. And I ate that up. I read about it, and part of that campiness, Glenn, was not so much because of Tim Burton so much as the producers of this film, which we'll get from what I read up on it, which we'll get into a little bit as well with Tim Burton and big budget blockbuster films and him still being an indie director. So we'll get into it now with Batman Returns, because I want to talk about this opening scene, because we actually get introduced to our villains before we actually are introduced to the Batman, which I thought was an okay approach because of the fact we had a lot more Batman in the first one. But not only do we get more of the villains, but we also get more of Alfred and a more violent Batman. Glenn, what'd you think about the more violent Batman and just that we really don't get to see him pretty much in the first, say, 5-10 minutes of this film? I knew that was coming.
Yeah. The movie is called Batman, right? Batman Returns. So
That's what they call it.
He'll return after these messages, apparently. Yeah, again, a big part is going back is just, for me, it just does not hold up. Even now, seeing Keaton in some of the roles, the serious roles he does now, the roles he's doing now where he's serious, like when he did Birdman, and is that what it was?
Yeah, Birdman.
Yeah, Birdman and stuff like that. He is such a different actor than he was 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm. In a
And
good
I-
way, or in a good way?
in a very good way. In a very good way. Even I just I have hard time, and maybe it's because of so much of the recent Batmans where it's much more everything is so much darker, and just that I'm Batman. I need a lozenge. Batman. This era. Michael Keaton for me is just too much Mr. Mom gung ho type guy that it's just even in the suit I'm like it's just
Just didn't work for you, did it?
it just doesn't.
Yeah.
It just doesn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I like some aspects of the film, it's just I just can't anymore. I don't go back and I don't really rewatch any of these other than the first one on rare occasions because I still love the Burton's vision as far as like the setting, the scenes, the scenery and stuff like that, and the set design. I love that.
Yeah, well, that all comes, I think, why that works so well with the first one and especially this one is because Burton's an artist first. I mean, he's animator and such, and that really comes across on both these films. So the worlds at least that he paints are really visually interesting, and again, like in the first one, I think he shot this and handled this again like panels of a comic book. He's creating a live comic book rather than just a movie, more told like a comic book than a movie. But I can see Keaton. He didn't jive with a lot of people even back then, and I think even less with Batman Returns than in the first one. If I remember some of the criticism. Cole, how about you with the way they open this, and pretty much throughout the whole film, this really becomes a little more of the villain story more so than exploring anymore with Batman, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it works best that way, honestly. I mean, I've always thought that I mentioned this on our last show, so I won't recap the whole thing, but I think these directors, all of them, everybody from Burton to Nolan, have a reason for not making Batman the star. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a very good reason. You guys, I know most fans disagree. Bring back the Bat. We want more Bat. There are fans that stop there with a stopwatch and literally time out the amount of time he's in and break that down into a percentage. And apparently in The Dark Knight Rises, he was only in 14% of the film. I think that's perfect. Mm-hmm. I think the villains are more interesting. And I think if you're going to do sequels, you need to leave some of Bruce a mystery. I mean, by Batman Forever, they were already going back into what they'd done in the first movie. Yeah. They were already sort of digging. They were already like, oh, we're out of ideas. And then by Batman and Robin, there was zero angst. It was just like Schumacher was like, okay, we can't have him whining and crying anymore. And I like that too, believe it or not. I thought that worked for that one single movie. But, to answer your original question, yeah, I mean, introducing the villains right up front I thought was great because it's interesting what Burton does is he almost makes you feel sympathy for the Penguin as the film goes on, and yet you saw him as a baby like suck this cat into a crib and the thing is pure evil. So I mean, we're not, make no mistake, from frame one, this baby is a monster. Mm-hmm. But Burton plays this cool trick, and also it's a very timely film right now with the manipulation of politics in this great character of Max Schreck, where he sort of builds this world of villains that is eternal. I mean, until our current political system changes. I think there's some really interesting things going on, not even in the background, right up front, that great scene with Keaton and Schreck. And I think there's a reason the villains are up front and Batman is a supporting character. And I know I'm in the minority on that, but I like Batman in the shadows. I like him in the background. And, so that's just me.
And Keaton was still all right for you as Batman?
Yeah, I thought he was great. And, the interesting thing they do is they open this up and he hasn't learned Well, just to start off, I think Keaton is interesting because he's not a playboy. He doesn't play it as a playboy. He's the only guy to not do that. I mean, even by the time Kilmer got there in the next film, he was already, the ladies' man. I think it was really interesting to play him as like this awkward, this almost somewhat virginal character. But in terms of the Batman character, I think it was interesting that he hasn't learned anything from the Joker's death. The no-kill rule is not in effect for the first half of this movie, right? He's blowing people up, like he's killing them left and right. But then, if you notice, the real DC Batman at the end, through his affections with Selina, and through that love story, it does change him. And at the end, with the Shrek character, he says, "Hey, look, you're going to jail," right? Mm-hmm. And that's Batman. That is, so I think there is a character arc here. I don't think it's just Burton throwing paint at a seeing what sticks, as some people said. He didn't understand Batman, and Burton himself has admitted he's not a huge comics guy. But I do think that Keaton, in conjunction with Burton, is doing something here with the character.
Yeah. And David, how about you with that? Then you think? Opening up Batman with him being violent, we're focusing a little bit more on the villains, but then at the end, Batman seems to want to bring them in and book them, Daniel, versus kill Shrek. How'd you feel the arc and that they did with Batman here in this film?
Well, as we know, the opening opened up with Cobblepot, its mansion and whatnot, and after seeing this again, I had actually forgotten that Reuben played the Penguin's father. So to me, remembering bits and pieces as I'm going throughout the whole film is kind of like unwrapping the mold, so to speak. So to me, I think if he hadn't gone that way, the movie wouldn't have been as entertaining as it is. Mm-hmm. But I'm mixed on this beginning part because I kind of wanted to see the Penguin a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Because you see the bedroom down the hall, you see or hear the wife scream. Mm-hmm. And you hear him go down the hall, see him go down the hall, and all of a sudden you hear him scream. I kind of wanted to see more of the Earth.
You want to see more of Baby Penguin.
Exactly. I wanted to see how grotesque he was, even though. In a sense, I did like how in the next scene that you saw him grab the cat, eat it, But to me that beginning scene was kind of a cop out to me. Mm-hmm. So, I wanted to see more. But as far as the direction where the villains were more of the main characters, I definitely think that is a way to go about and explain the Gotham Batman universe. Mm-hmm. Because you need to see the background of these characters. You need to see where their origins were, at least in the mind of the director,
right,
and the writer. And from what I understand, Burton was given more creative control. He didn't really want to do this sequel at first.
Yeah, he didn't. He didn't want to do it. But the producers also started having input when they realized what type of film he was making.
Yeah,
because it wasn't exactly what they kind of wanted, which is kind of funny. Because Burton wanted to go even darker, apparently, than what he did.
As far as Batman and his bombs and how he used a little bit more weapons than his gadgets, so to speak, I think that was a little bit over the top. Mm-hmm. To me, Batman was not a guy of automatic weapons or self-destructive things. That was the villains.
Mhm.
That was the villains. In a sense, I almost feel like Batman was half villain in this movie.
That's true, and maybe that's what he was trying to go for after being affected so much with what happened with the Joker, possibly. But he doesn't flesh that idea out too much. So
No.
Batman comes out just as this really kind of violent, vengeful guy. Don, what about you? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Dude.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, Don. What about you with the feeling with what they did with Batman here, as far as he's actually killing guys and such, and kind of the way they open this as well, where we don't get a lot of Batman in the beginning.
Now, the not getting a lot of Batman in the beginning didn't bother me. As I mentioned when we were discussing the 1966 Batman, Batman is defined by his villains. He has become who he is because of his villains. He has learned, he has grown, and gained experience and compassion and a little humanity and darkness, certainly darkness, through his experiences with his villains. Everything that happened in the previous movie with Joker, Cole had mentioned, he doesn't seem to, and with Vicky Vale, they just mentioned that very briefly in the movie when they're talking about his, in that scene where Bruce and Selina are kind of talking about his ex-girlfriend. He doesn't really seem to have moved on a whole lot or processed those events very well. Certainly he's become darker and more brooding, and he's misstepping, and I think he learns that he's misstepping by delving too deeply into that darkness and the violence. And as Cole had mentioned, by the end of the movie, because of his relationship and his experiences with Selina, Catwoman, he does humanize more and move away from that darkness.
Yeah, I think Selina helps him realize what path he was on. Because Selina, by the end of this film, is Batman at the beginning of this film. So yeah, you're right. I think it does kind of open his eyes a bit to that. Now, glad you mentioned Selina, because that's the next character I wanted to talk about, which was Selina Kyle here and Catwoman. And Dawn, I want to start off with you for Catwoman. How'd you feel about Michelle Pfeiffer's portrayal of this interesting character who has been the love interest of Batman for many moons?
At the time, I really liked it. She was the hot thing, the hot commodity, the popular choice at the time. She doesn't do a terrible job. I mean, nobody's Julie Newmar or Eartha Kitt, but she's athletic enough. That outfit was miserable.
Did not like the outfit at all, did you?
No.
And the brown tweed.
I don't know. I don't care if you get thrown off a building and die and are awoken by mystical cats who turn you into a supernatural being. First reaction of most people is not to go home and create a vinyl cat suit that you have to be vacuum suctioned into. But Michelle Pfeiffer is an okay choice. She's certainly got the job done. Her chemistry with Michael Keaton worked for the film at the time. Looking at some of the other choices that they had on board, or that they had considered, I like Michelle Pfeiffer more than some of those options, like Lorraine Bracco.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if Sean Young would have been able to pull it off. Maybe, but it'd be interesting to see her take that role the way it was written. Because
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think the
see it.
closest. I think the closest thing she got to. She could have gotten the tough.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she just was certainly sexy enough, but like thinking about her performance in Dune,
Yeah.
that's a big maybe. I mean, that's about as close as I can get to her being a Catwoman.
Yeah, I think more of it's pulling off the Selena Kyle that would have probably been a little bit tougher for Sean Young.
Yeah. Otherwise, we'd get something like Dr. Jekyll and Ms. Hyde.
Dr. Jiggle and Miss Hyde. Sorry,
Dr. Jekyll.
I know. I know
the Tim Daly one.
Yes, Dr. Jiggle.
Dr. Jiggle.
Dr. Jiggle and Miss Hyde's a completely different movie.
Yeah.
But no, I get what you're saying with that. And David, how about you with Catwoman? How'd you feel about Michelle Pfeiffer in this role and how they wrote this character?
The second half of her role, I thought that she was really getting into her role.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, she has that cheesy line where she says, "I'm Catwoman. Hear me roar." That's just so cheesy. I mean, I understand it's bringing out her wild side, but I had a problem with how they brought about the origin of her story. Because when she died, so the cats come around and commune and do some kind of like running around on her, and all of a sudden her eyes open, and so now she's a cat. So what, did they inject her with something? Did that cat hump her to have her become what she was? I'm not sure.
I see, and I never took it as go ahead.
And then she goes home and does all that sewing of the leather. It's like it's like kooky. How can you connect? Okay, so all these stray cats, all the and whatnot. So basically, they're on top of her, and it's some kind of ritual.
Well, I never took it as a mystical thing, and it was, depending on which comic you read, you did have that similar, but I think that was influenced by this film. See, the way I took it is, I never took it that she was actually dead, and she was brought back to life. The way I had gotten it, because she hits a number of those Shrek things before she hits the ground. So for me, I never took it as the mystic thing and the cats wake her. I think I took it as just she fell and her fall was broken enough to where she's knocked unconscious when she falls, and
then she has this like invisible 9 lives, supposedly. Right?
It's supposedly, but if you look at the way that she talks about the 9 lives, she doesn't actually die, but in her brain she did. But she's actually just barely missed death a couple of times, and I think it was a little bit more metaphorical than actual lives.
But like I said later on, I do think that she was really getting into her role. Like sure. My favorite scene of her is where she was sitting on the bed with Penguin, and she just kind of starts licking herself. That's my favorite part. For some, we have a cat. Her name is Sassy, and she does the same damn thing.
Well, the exchange between her and Penguin in that scene actually is really great as well. I enjoyed that quite a bit. But no, I can see you make some really valid points with it. And again, it's this is why I love movies, because everyone sees something different. For me, I guess I never took it as mystical, but I can see definitely how it could be played either way with that. Glenn, I know you mentioned earlier you didn't quite care for what they did with the Catwoman character. So what was some of your beefs with this character?
Well, for me, there's only one true Catwoman,
Uh-huh.
and that's Julie Newmar, Lee Merriweather, and Eartha Kitt.
Yes.
That's the only true Catwoman. I think her outfit's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Really, really think it's ridiculous. I mean, the leather and stuff, that was always a thing, but this whole like stitched together kind of thing that she's got going on, and then I remember when I first saw it in the theater, when I had probably one of my I wouldn't say one of my first, but one of the ones I remember the most of my kind of a WTF moments is when she starts freaking licking herself. I'm like, what? You're taking the whole Catwoman thing just too much to that. And I've never been a big Michelle Pfeiffer fan.
Mm-hmm.
So just the whole way her I don't know. I never got into her in this role. It's just, I don't know, just something about Michelle Pfeiffer, and then the costume. That just the big thing, I couldn't get past the costume.
Sure.
Was a big part of it. That and the whole, she died, and then she gets licked by a cat, and now she's like alive again. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What?
See, again, I guess I missed it that she was actually supposed to be dead, because I never took it ever that she actually died and came back. And she looks near death, I will say, but I guess I'll have to watch it again, because I never took it that she actually died. I took it that she.
Well, I mean, this is the Batman universe, so you can break your back and then just fix yourself.
You can raise the dead, if you really want to.
Yeah, you just go to find yourself a Lazarus pool, take a dip, and there you go.
Well, I was just going to say, you just have some guy poke you a few times in the back, and presto, you're fixed.
Oh, yes, there's that, too. It is a comic book world. Take it a little bit to the extreme in Batman Returns versus the first one. I will say that. Cole, how about you? Where do you feel with Catwoman? Are you one... would you agree with the rest of the group here? Or are you one that you enjoyed Michelle Pfeiffer in this role?
Yeah, no, I'm in the minority. It had never occurred to me that it was goofy or strange. I mean, Dawn raises some good points, as does Glenn for sure. Mm-hmm. But honestly, I'd never had those thoughts. I thought it was a very unique approach to take the sort of stereotype that everybody makes fun of, which is the crazy cat lady, right? And totally flip that on its heels and turn that into a sex symbol. Although you guys don't like the outfit, which I think is fucking fantastic. Wow. I mean, it's my type of thing. I like the sort of female Frankenstein type of thing they were going for. I like the fact that Michelle Pfeiffer did all her own work with a whip, which, by the way, in the one take where she whips off those 4 mannequin heads, although they cut it up, she did that.
In one take,
she did that all in one take. I don't know why they cut it up. I guess just a stylistic choice. It is a comic book movie, so they need frames. But I like, again, with all due respect to the group, I just, you drop a guy into a vat of acid, he comes out looking like a clown. Why can't a lady hit her head and go crazy? I just, I think it makes perfect sense that she just hit her head real hard. She's the neighborhood cat lady, right? All these cats come out. Try laying down. I've got 4 cats. You lay down for a second, all of them are on your chest. That's what cats do. So the whole thing made sense. And then, I guess the symbolism is too obvious for some, but I like her smashing out the light so it says hell here. And the suit just sort of that she makes represents her fragmented psyche, which is just sort of like in patches. She's in patches. She's far more fragmented than Bruce Wayne is, I think. And I think her performance as both characters isn't looked at. I think she does both characters very, very different. And Yeah, I mean, it just worked for me. You know, it was my type of thing. I like how she takes out the real lead baddie at the end, who is Walken. Really, he's the real, you know, the guy sort of pulling all the strings. In fact, Batman doesn't really take out any of the lead villains in this thing, which I think is also an interesting choice. But and I like how, as you said, Mark, you blew my mind when you said this, but this movie ends with her where Batman was at the end of the first film, which is staring up at that light and still hungry for more vengeance. You know, I thought that was a really unique. I love. I think it's safe to say this is my Catwoman. Although I love all versions, but this is, you know, my batshit crazy Catwoman. I love her.
I love the Catwoman of '66, and I enjoyed Michelle Pfeiffer in this role because, just like the Batman and the characters, it fit for the world. Whether or not you agree with how it was written, I will say that with the way the rest of this world is done stylistically, I think she fit into that world. That's a Catwoman that I could see cropping up in that world. Dave, did you were going to say something?
Oh, me?
Yeah, I thought you had said something. I apologize.
No.
But, and I think she fit for this world, and I enjoyed seeing her in this world. And yeah, for what Michelle Pfeiffer did, she does play a little bit with this underlying darker side she already has. I mean, in that opening scene when she first meets Batman and he does, you missed thing, and he clocks the guy with the concrete from behind and she grabs the taser, she suddenly gets a Catwoman look just for a minute and zaps him. And then she's back to, Selena Kyle go, so it's always bubbling underneath. And as far as the Catwoman suit goes, it's Burton's style with the stitching in that. And, for me, I thought that fit with the rest of the palette, but I can definitely see there was some protests, and I remember correctly, and some people's criticism of how she was portrayed as far as that suit goes, and especially the kind of over-sexualization. But that
the
leads us to...
dominatrix, so to speak. I said the dominatrix, natrix, so to speak. The dominatrix suit.
It was supposedly a popular suit among certain circles, I think, at that time when it came out. But with her having that, a little bit more that sexuality to her, leads me to the other character and kind of a realization this time watching it again, as I've watched it so many times and I still see something. But we lead to the Penguin, and it's described as the grotesque Penguin. And Cole, how'd you feel about the Penguin and Danny DeVito's portrayal of this character who is completely different? Completely different than the Penguin we got in the '66 Batman, or even in most of the comics, all of the comics.
Yes, it is, and this is one point, and I know that a couple of my great friends here don't like the film too much, and this is one point where I can see the criticism is the Penguin character, because it really is tweaked beyond recognition. I mean, in one point they try to put the signature cigarette pipe thing in his mouth, right? And he spits it out. It's basically a completely revamped character from the ground up, which I enjoyed. The Penguin is probably my least favorite villain, although I like all the villains, obviously. But in the Batman universe, I just think it's kind of a bizarre villain, a guy with umbrellas as weapons, and I just think it's strange. It's hard to do right, and it's done rarely, and I can see why. And I can see, Burton coming into this like, well, what the hell am I going to do with this? And he tried to do some good things, by making the Penguin the head of the Red Triangle Gang, and he tried to work in some interesting things, but in the end, it really is all about, a typical Tim Burton story. Really doesn't have much to do with the character of the Penguin, which is this guy split down the middle, trying to be something he's not. He's really a monster, and he'll never be able to change. And he's a destroyer of innocence, and he ends up dying at the very bottom of the city, unknown. Very sad, and tragic. Vintage Burton, not very. Doesn't have very much to do with the Penguin, but I like it.
Complete with penguin pallbearers.
Yeah, penguin pallbearers. Yes, that is so fucking bizarre. Wow. It's so strange, but I love it. I love the imagery because they are a strange animal. They're just a strange animal to look at. You almost feel sorry for a penguin just looking at it. Like, geez, I wish I could give it legs, or something. But I think it's a great shot. Like you said earlier, Mark, you got to give Burton this. He comes up with really good shots, and then combined with who is it, Stefan Zapsky? I believe so. Yeah, the cinematographer, and then of course Elfman's score. I mean, it's just it's amazing. Anybody out there who hasn't listened to Elfman's score on its own in its entirety, you must. It's amazing.
Well, it's actually hard not to talk about the Penguin and Elfman's score separately, because it was something I noticed in this film watching it as well. Is the Penguin, a lot of his emotions and stuff are told through Burton's score more than any other character in this film. Every time his role is out, Elfman's score really comes out as almost, part of the inner emotions the character is feeling with him, more so than even the other characters. So yeah, they kind of go hand in hand in here. David, how about you with the very grotesque, very different Penguin than we had seen up until this point?
Well, see, I think very much that the Penguin had a humanistic quality to him, because he did want to find out about his family,
right?
And that was something that was underlined. Even though you knew he was evil, you knew he wanted to find out what happened to his family, and of course he did it in front of news reporters of Gotham and whatnot, is finding out what happened to his family or whatnot. But I definitely think that there is a human quality to Penguin. But I found that the Penguin was very quirky. Ultimately, you almost can't tell that it's Danny DeVito underneath all that makeup, man. I mean. It's cheesy, and yet it's hard to explain. But there is one aspect of his Red Triangle gang I'd like to point out, though, that I noticed. The part where all these Scully dudes come out on bicycles and shit.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Little circular signs on them that made me think of that little bicycle dude from Saw.
Yep. Yeah.
And I kept on thinking that James Wan might have had some kind of a look at these dudes, because if you put some hair on that fucking thing and put the damn thing on a tricycle, it would definitely be the Saw tricycle dude.
I could see that. Yeah. I could definitely see that. Though I'd love to see these guys running around on like demonic, badass tripped out tricycles. That'd be cool. Gwen, how about you with the Penguin and just how different he was in this? I mean, I'm sure many comic book fans out there did not like the liberties Tim Burton took with this character.
Yeah. I would be one of those.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. It just, again, like I said, it was this mix of camp with dark that just didn't sit well with me, and then just yeah.
just didn't care for. What'd you think of DeVito's performance, though? I mean, he does go all in on this.
His performance is fine.
Yeah,
I think that the character as written is flawed.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean like as in, he's a flawed person and that's, makes for a different character. I mean, the actual concept of the character is flawed.
Right.
or the execution. Well, I mean, the execution is his acting, which I think he does fine. But I don't know. It just
You get some of the best one-liners in here.
he does get some good lines. The problem is that it's hard to take him seriously,
Right.
most of the time, and
Mhm.
you're trying to make him dark, but he's too comical
Mm-hmm.
to be taken seriously as dark.
Right. And I could see that definitely, that he was a bit more comical than what you might expect. To the point of when he is dark, you can't quite take him seriously. Don, how about you? For our penguin and how grotesque and different he was.
I can see what Glenn is trying to say. As far as the penguin goes, they were trying to do something really. It seems to me that they were trying to do something very complex with him. He was not just deformed. He was also poisoned.
Mm-hmm.
He was born deformed and monstrous, and so his parents threw him away, and he went to live in the sewers, and he made comments about living with the toxic waste, and which came up repeatedly as he was salivating black and green all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So he was not only deformed and monstrous, he was also poisoned. So chances are he was probably already dying throughout the film. He wanted to be human. He was trying to be human, and he really worked at it. And then when it was obvious he couldn't be human, through his naivety, through his lack of social skill, through just his own monstrousness, he just completely threw it away.
Right.
He was not used to being part of the world of man. He was used to living, stealing, taking, conniving. So I think I agree with Glenn. Danny DeVito did a really good job. The character was overly complex for what this movie was.
Right. And I can see that. I got into him, and I guess for me, you're absolutely right. I guess I didn't give a huge amount of thought to his character, because even though they were trying to write him as complex, I looked at it as a very simple, straightforward type of character, that he's just pulling the wool over everybody's eyes. Planning for killing all the firstborn sons of Gotham. And he gets sidetracked for this.
Biblical.
Huh?
That was almost biblical.
That was almost biblical. The fact he was a firstborn son, and so you've got that, but then you got that whole storyline where he kind of diverges, and Shrek is trying to use him to be a mayoral candidate in this, showing you the sheeple of Gotham that we have here, and how quick they are to turn on anybody. Which I thought was interesting. But yeah, his character, you're right, is a little more complex than what you might expect for this. And also it is Burton really being Burton. This is Burton's Penguin. this is not your regular Batman Penguin. And I like what kind of the comics and even the video games have done later with him, making him an arms dealer and being more of an organized crime boss, almost more like a Grissom.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of ways later on.
What's funny is later on in the 1993's The Nightmare Before Christmas, he almost did like a Two-Face / Penguin character as the mayor.
Yes.
I mean, he had to have something in his mind to have a penguin.
Well, Burton's got his own style, and he's consistent in his style. I'm a huge Burton fan, but I fully acknowledge how people didn't quite care for this. And the box office spoke as well for Batman Returns. It made half of what the first one did. So a lot of people didn't quite care for what they did with this film, and it was probably because of especially the liberty not only they took with the Catwoman but the Penguin character for sure. But one thing I noticed watching this time, this one has, and I don't know why I didn't notice it really before. Maybe because I was young and a little bit older. Well, in '92 I was 17. So maybe I didn't catch it, but there are some perverse sexual undertones and overtones in this film that I was like, holy crap, this is PG-13. Dawn, what'd you think of this? I mean, the Penguin, how they handle Pfeiffer and even Batman to a certain extent. There's a lot of perversion going on in this film.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It gets bad. It gets really bad. I mean, the most blatant part was where the Penguin does his schlocky proposal.
Oh yes, to
That
Catwoman.
was
Or just before that.
In your dreams.
Well, Catwoman does get some good lines. That's one of them where they just framed Batman for the death of the Ice Princess, which. There was some right away. We got to see the Ice Princess in the beginning, and she takes off her, her robe and shows her scanty outfit, if you will, for winter is still inappropriate, and people are whistling, which carries through. But Batman gets framed for her death, and they're on the roof, and he gives that description. But Catwoman gets a great line of saying, "Oh, please, I wouldn't touch you to scratch you," and. Penguin is kind of a walking, for lack of a better term, a walking hard-on with Catwoman around.
Well, with everybody.
Or with everybody, yeah.
The running monologue that he's constantly doing under his breath with the young interns and the groping and the talking about groping and the wanting to be groped.
I'd like to fill her void. Some of the lines and stuff in here, but not only him, but I mean, we've got Catwoman, who has Selena Kyle is played here as kind of and this is the way she's being portrayed in the movie as kind of this mousy and reserved female character, and then the Catwoman is completely, not only is that outfit sexualized, but just the way she is in general, very free as well. So she's kind of got her own thing running on. And then Batman, with his attraction to Catwoman, has his own kind of sexual thing going on throughout this film. So, yeah, I didn't catch this. David, how'd you feel? Did you catch all the sheer volume of actual, like, sexual
in some of the characters, I definitely caught some of that. But there is also that wavering point where Catwoman was looking at that store window, and when Bruce Wayne comes up to her and says, "Well, you obviously have a darker side, don't you?"
Yeah,
I mean. There was that wavering of unconfidence that was in her, so you could see the part where she was Selena Kyle and the part that she was Catwoman, and when he offered the dinner, there was definitely a gleam in her eye,
Yeah. There was a gleam in her eye, and then you get the scene where they're costumed and they're under the mistletoe and she licks him, which again you're just like, wow, this is what rating? You're going through this, for back then anyway. And you get the line from Penguin when he sees her, that whole dialogue when they're trying to plot how to frame Batman. And that gets a little.
Cat that caught the canary.
Yes, the cat that caught the canary. They kind of threaten each other's pets, but just for that they're talking about ointment and and that and there's a little more contact. Cole, what'd you think? Does it surprise you with the overall sexual theme that actually is running through this film?
Yeah. It surprised me then, and it surprises me now, and I'm glad they did it. I think it takes it really experiments with what you can do with sexuality in a comic book film, because a lot of the perverse stuff in this movie, I mean, a lot of it's for jokes, but some of it isn't, right? I mean, some of it's pretty serious. I mean, even Catwoman, who saves a woman from being raped, doesn't necessarily have nice things to say to the woman either. It's pretty, it's not very politically correct. I mean, just that little bit, not to cause a huge, but I'm just saying stuff like that is intentional. They don't just throw stuff like that in. You make it so easy waiting for a Batman to come and save you, and yet, she ends up becoming attracted to this Batman. But the story in itself, to me, is about sort of perversion, sexual perversion, very much so. In the case of the Penguin, he's a pervert. The character is a pervert, sort of offset by this really, really hot romance that's happening. And I'm sure I'm the only person on the panel tonight who thinks it's hot. I think this is probably what Burton was trying to go for when he initially cast Sean Young in the first film, was something a little bit. I mean, I love Vicky Vale. I love what Kim Basinger did. That film is monumental and it's perfect. But as a romance unto the Batman story, this is as good as I've seen. That scene where they're making out, and it's really, you get the feeling these two people are connected. It's really not Hollywood tonguey type of kisses. The focus is on the fireplace and the warmth, which you haven't gotten. Most of the shots are in this cold, gritty city, and you get this fireplace and this warmth, and yet you get their scars, right? They can't get close to each other because of their scars. And the whole story is about this. They're trying to connect and they can't because of this perversion around them. And Don made the great point about the Penguin possibly having cancer, which I think is key. I hadn't even thought of that. So it's the city itself that's this cancerous thing. And Batman's like, if you'll only come home with me, just come home and we'll solve all of this. But really, they've been perverted on the inside by these villains, and they can't walk away from their shadowed egos. But short story long, Mark, it's a sexual film, and a surprisingly sexual film, both for the romance and for these really gross one-liners that are pretty nasty.
They are pretty nasty overall. Glenn, with the sexual themes and that, did you have anything to add about it? Did that come through to you when you first watched it?
Oh, Pervy McPervy pants. That was.
But not just pervy pants, but I mean, because actually all the characters in here. Do you think he was trying to go for it because these are heightened characters versus your normal person?
I mean, there's going for it, and there's hitting you with a sexual sledgehammer. So, it was, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting about this film is that he made it very dark, and it surprised the producers because of just how dark he made it, because they wanted kind of more of a family superhero film. And Batman Returns definitely is not, what I think they had in mind.
Family oriented. It's not exactly feature films for family.
No, it's there's a lot of stuff going on. Though I did like they still kind of had a bit of the detective thing in here, and we do get more Alfred Pennyworth. Glenn, you have to at least like the fact we get more Alfred Pennyworth in this.
Sure.
I know it's not called Alfred Pennyworth, but
hey, that'd be a good movie.
That would be awesome. A whole movie told from Alfred's perspective.
Yes.
Copyright spoiler.
From young, how he became who he was.
Yeah, dude, an Alfred story.
Alfred Origins.
Yeah, Alfred Origins.
Watch Gotham. You get a lot of that in there.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
That's
awesome.
that's about the only thing I liked from what that I watched of Gotham.
There's the whole nother fandom for Gotham versus some real fans of the comics. But we actually have a viewer in the room, and Wildman Beyond has asked, what do we think of the soundtrack without Prince? We don't really get a pop album to attached to this one. We get a Susie and the Banshees song. Glenn, I heard a sigh.
Maybe because they knew that it wasn't the family-oriented version, they just slapped whoever on to begin with.
Susie and the Banshees. Well, I think they're kind of going for that Catwoman
Tainted
feel.
forever.
Glenn,
Yeah.
what was that?
Susie the Banshees, tainted forever.
You did not like their song attached to this movie?
No, I don't. I'm a big Susie fan, so.
Ah,
I mean, I think the Prince soundtrack originally is just so. I think there's so much in the first movie that's so vastly superior to this that it's to me just so much of it was a letdown.
right. Yeah, and it is. I could see definitely the way it's approached, especially for a Bat fan. Like I said, I love both of them, but I think the thing is, and I think I realized it just talking with you guys tonight, I enjoy Batman Returns as a Tim Burton film more than a Batman film.
Yes.
I agree.
And I think that's what it truly is the first one is a Batman film. This is Tim Burton presents Batman. This is his own version of it, whereas the first one maybe stuck a little more to the comic. This is really just Burton Batman, almost. And I think that's why I like him equally, is because I grew to really like Burton, so I watched this. But now that I'm thinking about talking to you guys tonight, you really brought it to perspective for me. I like Returns because not that it's a Batman film, but it's Tim Burton film. So,
And Burton really went out of his way with the script, whether it was his original intention or not. He really went out of his way to make this a stand-apart film, not a direct sequel, and certainly not something that the next movie is directly following, but just one isolated adventure, so to speak, in the Batman universe.
right, almost like you had with Frank Miller's Dark Knight and such, where you have this alternate story told that may not actually fit into canon, that it's its own thing, and I think maybe that's what the approach is with it. David, how about you? Did you miss a pop song with this at all?
Not really, because to me, I guess when I think of the soundtrack tracks with Batman, it was Danny Elfman all the way. I've been a Danny Elfman fan since he was Oingo Boingo, and from then on forward. So to me, it wasn't the soundtrack that made it. It was with the pop songs or whatnot. It was the composement that went along with it. Along with this one, Susie and the Banshees didn't really stand out for me.
Right.
But in the next two films, the soundtrack stands out to me. A little bit more.
I'm not going down that road right now. We'll wait
Yep.
We'll wait till we cover Forever and Batman Returns when we talk about soundtrack. But
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm avoiding my trigger with that. But yeah, the Susie and the Banshee song that's tacked on here felt tacked on. It felt like we need to find something that'll attach itself to Catwoman, and hey, there's this song. And with the money they probably offered, I'm sure the Susie and the Banshees said, sure, okay. I'm sure there was at least some good, decent money offered for it. But I guess we'll sit here now, and I asked each one of you if you had a question, maybe something that we haven't touched on tonight that you wanted to bring to the group to discuss, or a question or something. And we'll start with Cole. Did you have anything that we haven't already touched on that you maybe wanted to bring up for the group to talk about?
My generous host, but I sort of feel like I already know the answer. I was going to ask, would you have been interested in seeing a third film by Burton and with Keaton? And, just very briefly, what would you have liked to have seen in it? But I don't.
Oh, yeah.
I don't really think. I don't know if you guys would have liked that, man.
Well, even though our panel here, most of them didn't quite care for Batman Returns, let's go down and find out, because I know what my answer is, but I'd love to hear this. Glenn, if Burton was going to do a third film, I know you didn't quite like his direction with this. What would have you liked to have seen him do with that third film?
Boy, that's a tough. I mean, on the spot, I don't know.
Right. What if they took that script for Forever, but had Burton do it?
No.
Fair enough.
I don't.
Do you think he could have brought something new yet, or did you, with the direction you saw him take with Batman Returns, did you kind of just want him to stop? Anyway,
I was kind of done with him after Batman Returns. Really,
sure.
And which is sad, because I love Burton's style, but there's a lot of things where a lot of Burton films that I watched him, I'm like, all right, if you take out his visual effects, it's really not a good movie. Is how I feel about a fair amount of his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So he makes very, very pretty movies.
Yes.
But at times they lack the substance that makes for what I think is a great film.
Mm-hmm. I can go along with that. I can see that, definitely.
I mean, he's done some great stuff, but just too often it's style over substance.
Mm-hmm. It's a little too much Burton and not quite so much story.
Yeah. Now, mind you, I'll take his style over his substance any day over, say, Michael Bay.
Right.
So,
I think
Tim Burton's Fast and Furious. Can we get that?
Tim Burton's Transformers.
Tim Burton's Transformers. Oh wow,
Tim Burton's Dune.
Although with modern Tim Burton, that would mean that Optimus Prime is played by Johnny Depp, and Megatron would have to be Helena Bonham Carter. So
you just blew my mind.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you need Helen Bonham Carter. She need to be like RC or something.
I haven't been Cybertron like that since grade school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Our viewer in the room said if Burton did a third movie, Johnny Depp would have been the Riddler and Billy D. Williams would have been Two-Face like he was supposed to do. And yeah, there was a lot of stories I had heard about the third film. Also, a Wayne's brother was going to be Robin.
No, please no. Please no.
Are you fucking with me? Really?
No, I'm not.
It was supposed to be Marlon Wayans.
Marlon Wayans is going to
was actually signed for it.
Yep.
Marlon Wayans was going to be Robin.
Okay.
They had Depp, and there was also talk at the time because of what they ended up doing to Robin Williams as Joker. They were talking about trying to bring him in as the Riddler, possibly. At least I remember reading an article or two in a magazine where there was mention of it possibly happening. And as Tim Burton says, he would have liked to go even darker than Batman Returns, which means you just watch an hour and a half of a black screen. I think.
Yeah, because his films do keep on getting darker.
They do for a while, especially in the 90s there. David, what about you? If you wanted to see a Burton do a third film, did you like the direction he was going, or what would you like to have seen from it?
I guess because this one was a flop, sort of, at the time, I would have been open to it.
Mm-hmm.
Just to see how twisted and demented he would have taken it.
Yeah,
because you automatically know when you're going into the Tim Burton world that you're going to see something fucked up.
Yeah, that's for sure. Actually, Burton should have that like on his resume, just at the top. You're going to see something fucked up. And here's my list of movies to prove that. Dawn, if Burton were to do a third film, what would you have liked to see from it?
I would have liked to see Billy D. Williams come back as Two-Face.
Mm-hmm. I think Billy D. Williams could have pulled it off too.
I really do. As far as anything else, I don't know. I was okay where it stopped. I mean, they had to make a choice moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that where they went improved anything, but that's a discussion for another day. But I don't necessarily know that going darker would have improved anything.
Sure. Yeah, I would have liked to see his concept where he had Billy D. Williams as Two-Face, at least. And even I would have even been interested to see where he would have gone with, Marlon Wayans as Robin. I'm trying to picture this story that he would have put together, and anything just out of curiosity, just to see that script, would be interesting. Maybe not necessarily something you want to see come to light, but I think it'd be interesting to see where he wanted to take it, good or bad. Cole, what about you? What did you want to see from a third film, to answer your own question?
I just would have liked to have seen another Burton Batman movie. But as Dawn said, I think it was fine where it ended. I think more than anything, it would have just divided the fans more, which I think Batman Returns is sort of at that point where it was sort of splitting the fans, apart. Granted, not as much then because the internet really didn't exist, but still.
It was just starting. It was in its infant mosaic gifts, news group age yet. So.
I guess I would add the note that we don't know it necessarily would have gone darker. We do know that he was going to add the Robin. We do know that a lot of these ideas, the Two-Face, a lot of the ideas Schumacher, carried along were ideas Burton threw out at his initial pitch. If we're to believe Burton, these are his words. I'm paraphrasing, but he went in, did a pitch, halfway considering to do it, and all of a sudden he realized they were trying to talk him out of doing it, and he said, "Well, don't worry, I'm not offended. Like goodbye,
Well,
and that's where it ended.
As David alluded earlier, and I remember reading an article where Tim Burton really didn't want to do the sequel, but they offered him so much money that he was like, okay, if I get to do this big film, that means I can make enough money in that to go and do my smaller film, which do indie films, which listening to the commentary on the first Batman and then remembering these interviews that they kind of did with Burton afterwards, it made me realize I honestly think he likes doing the smaller films, because after Batman Returns, you know what film he did? Ed Wood.
Which a lot of people which is a very good film.
Which is
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people consider it Burton's masterpiece. I mean, nobody in my circle of friends, but some critics and stuff, you know.
well, and what movie did he do after Batman? Edward Scissorhands.
Yes.
So Burton kind of has this kind of following of, I'll do the Planet of the Apes. A lot of people hate that film. It was a big budget flop, basically, but he made a big budget film. They asked him to do it. And he went on to do Big Fish. He did Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and what did he do next? Corpse Bride. I mean, you can almost see a pattern here going.
Let's make a movie that bombs so that I can do the stuff that really matters.
Right? Make enough movie on the bomb, so yeah, I can go and do something more involved, you know. So maybe that is the approach he's been taking. That's looking at his IMDb page, you almost wonder if that's kind of what he's going for. But we'll move down the line here. David, did you have a question or topic that we may not have touched on tonight that you may want to bring to the group?
Oh, me?
Yes.
Well, the only thing I had, it's not a question. It's just an overall reaction to the Penguins at World's End, so to speak.
Sure.
How they got those Penguins to be trained to go to those corners of the town is beyond me, because I mean, even though I know that when Penguins march, they actually are very single file, you know, but how to be able to get that many Penguins going to one section and meeting.
Yeah. It's I like the Penguin segment in here. It was impressive, them wrangling actual real penguins with missiles on it, and that behind the scenes feature that I said that I actually have on the YouTube channel. They show them wrangling penguins and how they mixed in real penguins with animatronics to achieve what they needed to. But yeah, it was impressive. They wrangled that many penguins. I think they had 30 or 35 penguins that they used for each of those shots. And yeah, I as cheesy as it was, it is impressive, and I think it goes along with what we were talking about earlier with Burton having at least a visual style. So it was impressive. Some of the things they did in here. They also did ratcheting in here. If you don't mind me expanding on that a bit, David, you're talking about the technical aspect, not only wrangling the penguins, but they made a big deal with the ratcheting where they attached small cables to cars and they pulled the cars aside when the Batmobile was going crazy.
I saw that.
And when
I saw that.
And when people were...
But another thing I noticed on the Penguins is that they actually had these little metal suits like they were warriors.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw these little triangle metal plates on their chests like they were actually going into battle.
Glenn, what'd you think about at least the special effects in here with some of the action scenes and the penguins and that? Did you think that held up at least for you?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, again, like I said before, I mean, Burton does style. He does visually. He does really good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that holds up fine.
Yeah. Don, how about you? Would you agree with that? That with the penguins and at least the visual aspects of this special effects that they do in here hold up and they're impressive. Absolutely.
I have been trying to find where I read, and I cannot for the life of me remember where I read this. But this was in addition to that, those visual effects, practical visual effects. Is this, correct me if I'm wrong, but I swear I read that this was the last film that they did all with the sets built inside on sound stages too.
Yes.
This was one of the last films that they did that with. So gave them quite a bit more control to be able to do those stunning practical effects.
Yeah, because Forever and Batman and Robin both had more location shots. They didn't really do things on sound stages, so you kind of leave that built world that they had in here. And Cole, how about you? Just real quick, the visual effects with the penguin wrangling and the ratcheting that they did with the cars, which apparently had never been done before, and they did that with people in the ballroom scene. What do you think of the visual stuff with this?
Absolutely amazing. It was so wonderful tonight to be able to sit there and watch this with my fiance and my stepson. And there's a couple shots of the penguin when he first meets Walken at the depths of the sewers there, and he's laying out his whole spiel. And behind him, you see the penguins in the pool darting back and forth, and just to know they're not computer generated, to know they're either real or they're somebody's makeshift robot, and you can tell. It just Burton's sets bleed of authenticity, even in their artificiality, if that makes sense. I was. I'll make this very quick. Listening to Kevin Smith's, he does a commentary for all 4 of these movies, which you can find on YouTube. The first 4 movies of the Formal series, and I believe there's a point where they make fun of this for reusing extras, because, and I personally think that's part of its charm. I love Kevin Smith. There's not to badmouth him, but the fact that this world isn't populated with miniature CGI people. Jesus, it's just amazing. I'll never grow tired of that type of storytelling. The smaller type of storytelling where you have to hire extras. Here, quick, put on a different hat and a different sweater and jump in that shot and things like that. I think the special effects in here were great. I don't know how they did them all. I'm going to research it more because just talking about it gets me enthusiastic. But as you said, the penguin shots are amazing. Yeah,
the penguin shots. You still got miniatures like you had in the first one. As Glenn said, and everybody here alluded to, Tim Burton's definitely a visual guy, more so than maybe the storyteller all the time with most of his films. And the visuals still hold up here watching what they did. And thinking about it today, the same film would have definitely been CGI'd cars, CGI background. We're talking a world where they're still doing, really full-on matte paintings. We don't get as many in Gotham City in this one, but you still get some full-on matte paintings in here.
Fodder for the fire.
Huh?
I said fodder for the fire.
Fodder for the fire, yeah. When you close set, you just set everything on fire and walk away. There you go. Dawn, did you have anything that we haven't touched on tonight that you maybe wanted to bring to the group?
Yeah, just kind of. Does anybody else feel that without Christopher Walken as Max Schreck, the movie wouldn't have been nearly half as good? Because for me, he's the whole point.
Mm-hmm. He is the linking pin between everybody in here. And Walken was great in here. He really hammed it up. David, what do you think? Do you think this film, if it wasn't Walken and Shrek, that this film would be probably a lesser film and it wouldn't hold together? Because he is pretty much the glue, isn't he?
Yeah, he basically is, because he's like this corporate conglomerate that's pretty much okayed by the mayor, and of course he's got a dark side, but I had a different aspect to him, though he was great in the film. He somewhat reminds me in look as he did as the Hessian in Sleepy Hollow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he does, actually. Now that you mentioned it, with the hairstyle that he had. Yeah, you're right. Well, maybe they're related. So, in the Burton universe.
Yeah. That's the only thing that I had. I mean, I kept on thinking, okay. He is very theatrical. And, to be honest, he played a cat, too. So yeah. To me, I mean, he played Puss in Boots back in the day.
Right.
So to me, I think he brought another aspect since there was Catwoman in the film. There was that aspect to him. Right. So it's almost like you could almost see him as being a mentor to Michelle Pfeiffer a little bit.
Almost, or at least she learned kind of how to be bad from him, even if he wasn't trying. Cole, how about you with feelings with Christopher Walken and his portrayal of Shrek? Would you say that, yeah, without him, this would probably be a lesser film?
Well, Donna said one of the best things on the show tonight, and I think it's important because a lot of the reviews, at least that came out when it was first released, said, well, this movie suffers from one extra villain that serves no point. Go ahead, go on YouTube after our show is done and look up Siskel and Ebert's review. That's like their main point, is that the Walken character does not need to be there, and that is so missing the point of this movie. And I could talk for an hour about it, and we don't have time to, but I'll just agree with Dawn and cut it short and say, first of all, I believe it's not a character from the comics. Am I wrong? I mean, I think it's just Burton's probably suggestion to the screenwriter to come up with this character named after the German guy who played the original Nosferatu and played this evil political leader that we're still battling in real life. So I think it, for so many reasons, it's the most. It is the driving force of the movie. This Max Shrek guy. I mean, he is.
He is, even for Bruce Wayne character, taking him on for in Bruce Wayne form, not in Batman form.
Which is a great scene. That scene is key. Because everybody, when Batman Forever came out, said, oh, finally Bruce is out on the town getting shit done. And it's like, wait, did you guys not see the Anyway, sorry.
No, that's okay. It's Glenn, how about you? Anything to add? Do you think it'd be a lesser film without Walken?
Every film's a lesser film without Walken.
Well said. Yeah, I have to agree that Walken, the fact they got Walken to play this character helped, and this character does actually connect everybody together, and he's the motivation for everyone, in all honesty, for doing things. So I would not say that he was a toss-up villain in general. He wasn't a, as dyed-in-the-wool villain. I mean, he was a corporate guy, but he wasn't the mega villain. But in all honesty, because of him, he is what motivates everybody to do what they do. It motivates Batman. It motivates the Penguin. Catwoman. Of course, she's got her revenge. So, yeah, it's and having Walken in it. If you had someone else, I think the film really falls apart then. Or if you just don't have this character altogether, trying to come up with getting these characters together, which. I think this film does it better than later superhero films where they feel like they need to put every single character in the movie. I'm looking at you, Spider-Man 3. This one, at least you have everybody kind of has a similar motivation or a common factor of what's driving them, rather than, oh, look, suddenly we've got this guy popped up because the producer wanted to see him in an outfit. I don't know. Glenn, did you have anything tonight that we haven't already touched on that you wanted to bring up?
Nope.
Nope. Okay.
No.
No. That's
we've touched on everything that.
Sure. No,
I've made my complaints.
You made your complaints. Yes, Batman Returns is, in many eyes, and even those on the panel here, was the lesser film, and the box office spoke to it. Though it did make money. Even by today's standards, it made double its. It made its box office back. So back then, that was enough to justify another sequel, which we got the Batman Forever, which we are going to talk about next week. It is Batmonth here, and that'll be an interesting discussion because that film is completely different than these first two films. So. I look forward to talking about that. But now's the part where we just want to get people's final quick thought on where they, these first two films we've gone through, where they're seeing the Batman series and their feeling on Burton as a whole, if they think he did a good thing overall or bad thing. So why don't we go with that? These two films, even if you didn't like Returns, do you think Burton help get this franchise rolling again, or do you think he maybe was a hindrance to it, and it's the reason why we got the Schumacher films? And then also let us know where we find you at. So Cole, what do you think? Do you think at least these first two films, Burton helped get the franchise rolling, even though the second film didn't go the direction they wanted it to?
Yeah, man. I think it was huge. I know you guys discussed 1989's Batman last week. This film was a different kind of movie. It was promoted as more of a Christmas movie. Even they had like snowflakes in the ads. Remember that? I swear they did.
Yeah, well, they did.
They did. And it was very odd. The Warner Brothers logo was kind of covered in snow. So it was a different kind of, movie. And all I can say is he made one that turned out the way everybody involved could have dreamed, right? I mean, he did things he didn't want to do, namely the big fight scenes that I love in the first film that aren't really here in this movie. You get your share of action, but you get both sides of the Burton coin. It's an interesting, two movies, to watch them back to back. I think he did nothing but good things for the franchise, and I guess about this film specifically, I would like to say, I do enjoy it as a Batman movie. It's maybe not the greatest Batman movie, and it's maybe not the truest, to the mythology or the characters, specifically when, dealing with the Penguin, but it was a good step. At least they knew that they didn't have to go any further in that direction, and they did their other thing. So I love it. It's one of my favorite movies, actually. It's weird. It might not be my favorite Batman movie, but it's one of my favorite movies, if that makes sense.
Sure. No, that makes sense.
If you can find me on Shadows and Lovers Productions on Facebook. We make movies. We watch movies. We got movies coming out. So thanks for listening. And David, Don, and Glenn, it was good hearing your thoughts, too. I have so much more to think about now,
Awesome. And David, your final thought with this, with Burton's first two Batman films, was it good or bad overall? And
I think it was a little bit of both. More or less because along with the Batman movie franchise, there are your true die-hard fans and your people that just love to watch movies.
Yeah.
And whether it was good or bad or whatnot, then that's always discussed afterwards. But as an overall, obviously, there were two other Batmans plus Christopher Nolan's reboot. So obviously the universe continued, and as long into the Gotham TV series as well. So to me, obviously, it continued.
Right.
The interest is there.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless whether people hated the film or loved it, it's there in cinematic history.
And I think his style really influenced Batman from there on.
I think so too.
Mm-hmm. So, and then where could they find your stuff at, David?
Well, I run Movies Galore of Milwaukee, which is a group as well as a review page, which I've got the website connected to the website or the review page or whatnot. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we discuss anything from silent films to present, current, in development projects, if there is a thought or two. But mostly I just post and people view whatever I post. So
awesome.
Which is fine with me.
I'll
just keep posting.
It will definitely add a link to that to the Special Mark Productions site for you on that. And we appreciate you joining us here. And Dawn, how about you? Your thought with Burton's impact with Batman, good, bad, even though Returns didn't quite sit well with you, and also where they.
Oh no, I liked Returns.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I liked Returns more than I liked the '89 one.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I brain farted there. So you did like Returns better than the '89 one. And do you think Burton at least it helped spark that franchise and get it rolling?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that there was a lot that happened in this film, things that were intended to happen that didn't happen, things that were too complex and weren't fulfilled. Was it Burton? Was it the producers? Was it the fan base? Was it whatever? It doesn't matter. I definitely think that Burton's vision has certainly influenced all Batman movies following this, not just the Schumacher ones, but the Nolan ones, and now the Zack Snyder vision of the DC universe. Definitely.
Yeah.
And I can be found in the audience.net, although my blog is being transferred to a new server, so there's some issues at the moment, but it'll get back.
Mother Nature had other plans for the servers. So.
Yeah, there was weather.
Yes. And Glenn, your feelings on the whole, I know you didn't quite care for Returns and that, but for Burton's influence and you think he helped really get things rolling and why we're still having the Batman of today?
Is the El Camino the best car ever made? No. But when you see one, you go, hey, that looks cool. And it's just part of an overall chain of kind of nifty things that have happened with Batman. Not all of them are good. You have Schumacher's, AMC Gremlin, and you have this one here, which, has great style. So I think it serves its purpose. It has its place in history of the Batman franchise, and it's as far as the Batman franchise goes, it's on definitely on the positive side much more than it is on the negative side of the Batman franchise. So
yes. And where can they find you at, sir?
You can find me, if you still want to, on the internet with the B-Movie Bunker on YouTube, also on Facebook, GuyInABunkerProductions.com, or just follow me on Twitter at GuyInABunker.
Awesome. And we just want to thank Wildman Beyond for listening in live to us. You can catch us on iTunes, Spoiler Room. Look for the Spoiler Room channel there on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. You can also find our archive on specialmarkproductions.com, where you can find all our past episodes as well as our most current episode. And if you're at all interested whatsoever in other reviews and stuff I do, you can find links there. My final thoughts with Batman Returns is I enjoy it as a Burton film, maybe not quite as much as a Batman film, and I came to that realization tonight, which is why I love doing this show, and I thank my fellow crew members tonight sitting down in the spoiler room and helping, giving me some food for thought. On the whole, though, yeah, I agree. Burton, whether you like him or not, he helped influence Batman, not only the movies, but the comics to come. In all honesty, his style influenced and encouraged and I think motivated people behind the Batman, the animated series, which in my personal opinion is the best comic, best cartoon that was made in my era of being young one to now. I love the animated series. And you see his influences yet today, even in the most modern Batman and the comics. So I think he was good overall, even though Batman Returns did not go the direction that many people wanted it to. But Burton also does a little dig to the fans in this film, which gives you that impression that he didn't quite want to do it. There's a scene where Burton is he gives a little nod to the 60s Batman in that Burton has Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne flip a little switch in an aquarium to basically get to the bat tube rather than the bat pole. But while he's doing that, he's doing a line of dialogue. And Alfred Pennyworth questions him about the repairing of the Batmobile. And he goes, there's a question of security involved. And our Bruce Wayne goes, security? Who let Vicky Vale into the Batcave? You know, I'm sitting there studying, and I turn around and I said, oh, hi, Vic. How you doing? That line, after you listen to the commentary on the 1989 Batman, is Burton's direct dig at the fans who gave him death threats because he had a scene where Vicky Vale went into the Batcave. I swear it is why he put it in there. And so, yeah, you can tell he didn't want to quite do Batman Returns. It is more Burton than a Batman film, but overall, his style between these two films has influenced Batman and got it sparked to why we still have this today and why, a lot of that style still creeps up in the art of both the comics and the movies. So hope you've enjoyed our discussion here. I know we went a little long tonight, but there's a lot to talk about. Great crew here tonight. Thank you, David, for joining us. Look forward to having you in here for our Third Time's a Charm and Batmonth special next week with Batman Forever. We're going to have some same crew members here in that one as well. Look forward to your comments as well. Please comment on our iTunes channel, rate and give us a holler and subscribe. Would love your support, and go to our Facebook page, the Special Mark Productions group, where you can have a say in what we talk about here in the Spoiler Room, and that's facebook.com/SMPRD. Now we're going to close it out tonight, so say goodnight, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.